Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something, well, radically different. We are completely stripping away the noise. We're going to look at a single 9-word fragment of text that perfectly captures this incredible tension between cold clinical authority and raw human vulnerability. We're jumping right into the deep end of how medical literature actually speaks to human pain. So let's get right to the source material.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our source text in its absolute entirety. Let's just really ground ourselves in the exact, uncompromising boundaries of what we're looking at today. Excerpts from The Anatomy of a Headache. Why do we get headaches? It's incredibly brief, right? But within just these 9 words, there is this absolutely fascinating tension simmering between the formal medical world and the everyday, messy reality of human experience.
Let's start literally right at the beginning with the phrase excerpts from. This framing is absolutely crucial because, by explicitly stating that these are merely excerpts, the text playfully acknowledges that we are only getting this tiny, restricted window into what must be a massive, highly detailed masterwork of clinical knowledge. It instantly establishes this heavy sense of authority before the main title even kicks in, basically letting us know, hey, there is a vast, unseen volume of research sitting right out of frame. And this brilliantly illustrates a central duality that runs straight through our source material. On one side, you have the primary title, right? The Anatomy of a Headache. It's formal, it's clinical, and it speaks with this absolute undeniable authority. I mean, it sounds like a definitive, heavy textbook. But then we hit the subtitle, in quotes, Why do we get headaches? The tone completely radically shifts. Suddenly, it's this vulnerable, searching question. It's almost like it steps right down from the podium of high medical science and decides to stand directly in the messy, chaotic reality of human suffering. Just look at the word anatomy on its own for a second. Normally, when we hear anatomy, we immediately think of tangible, physical structures, right? Bones, muscles, organs, things you can physically map out, measure, and dissect. Yet here, the source material is taking this rigid, highly scientific term and applying it to a headache, which is, by definition, an invisible, fleeting throb. By using the word anatomy, the text is boldly, almost audaciously, attempting to treat a completely subjective feeling of pain as if it were a concrete piece of architecture that you could just scientifically pull apart. And then, when that word anatomy collides directly with the word headache, wow, the contrast is just stark. The objective, rigid science of mapping a physical structure is suddenly forced to sit right side by side with the chaotic, subjective distress of human pain. Because let's be honest, a headache isn't just a simple biological process, is it? It is a profoundly disruptive experience. And our source text brings these two completely opposing, almost warring concepts together into one single phrase. Which naturally brings us to the core inquiry of the whole excerpt. Why do we get headaches? That highly authoritative voice of the anatomist just completely fades away here, and it's replaced by this intense, genuine, shared search for an answer. This is the exact question asked by literally anyone who's ever needed to just go lie down in a dark, quiet room. It is the core driving force behind the very existence of that massive, unseen clinical text we were talking about earlier. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this tiny little 2-letter word right in the middle, we. Out of all the words in our source material, I'd argue this one actually does the heaviest lifting. Notice that it doesn't ask why patients get headaches or why human subjects get headaches. It uses the universal pronoun. It completely levels the playing field, connecting all of humanity. And yes, that includes the highly trained medical professionals who authored the text through this one shared, highly vulnerable experience. And you've got to look at the deliberate pluralization here too. Headaches, plural. It doesn't ask why we get a headache, as if it's just this singular one-time event that you can permanently cure and walk away from. No, it inherently acknowledges the endless, recurring nature of the pain. It frames it not as a passing glitch, but as an ongoing, cyclical human burden. It's a plural problem for plural we. And then there's why. It is the ultimate driver of human inquiry. That single word represents the massive, frustrating gap between our lived, everyday experience of pain and our biological, scientific understanding of it. I mean, why is the word that launches literally every medical trial and scientific investigation in history? And in this specific context, it's the ultimate, unanswerable itch that this entire text is desperately trying to scratch. So, we arrive right back at the source's exact, profound question. Why do we get
headaches. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to think about that shared human we, because looking at it like this, it leaves us with this undeniable, desperate desire to finally turn the page of that unseen medical textbook and uncover the actual physiological answer for ourselves.